Okay, so now we'll be talking about aortic aneurysm. Before beginning, let us understand what is aneurysm. Aneurysm is nothing but a localized pathological dilation of the aorta. It is nothing but outpouching or dilation of the vessel wall. Now, aneurysm can be of two types, either true or false. True aneurysm is further divided into saccular and fusiform, as we can see over here. True aneurysm basically means that all the three linings of the vessel wall, that is tunica, intima, media and externa, are basically weakened and dilated. They are not broken, they are just dilated. If it's on the both side, it forms a spindle shaped structure and is hence called fusiform aneurysm. If it's on one side, it basically forms a sac like outpouching and is thus known as saccular aneurysm. If these three linings have some traumatic injury and they break apart, and we also know surrounding the blood vessel there is this extravascular connective tissue. If this is intact, what will happen? There will be extravasation of the blood and a hematoma will develop. But if you see externally, it will also appear as a outpouching. So this is basically known as false aneurysm. There is no weakening of the vessel wall as such. There is breakage of the vessel wall which is leading to a hematoma. How will we clinically differentiate a true aneurysm from a false aneurysm? Is basically there would be extravascular pulsating hematoma which is communicating with the intravascular space, unlike true aneurysm where such a thing will not be observed. The aortic aneurysm or any sort of aneurysm can be caused because of four things. It could be because of connective tissue disorder leading to weakening in the vessel wall. It could be due to defect in TGF beta signaling. It could be due to any inflammatory process, or it could be due to the loss of smooth muscle cell. Coming to connective tissue disorder, it can be few connective tissue disorders. Marfan syndrome, which involves a defect in fibrillin 1 protein. The other could be Ehlers-Danlos syndrome involving defect in collagen type 3. Now, coming to TGF beta, a very common, a very important question regarding this is something known as Loeys-Oett's syndrome. This basically involves defect in TGF beta signaling, which can lead to, weakening in the vessel wall, because this is involved in, extravascular, the extracellular deposits and all. Okay, so TGF beta signaling defect in Loeys-Oett syndrome could be because of three reasons. The receptor itself is defective. There could be a defect in the downstream signaling molecule known as SMAD3, or there could be defect in TGF beta 3 itself, which can lead to the weakening of vessel wall. Okay. The third thing is inflammation. Inflammation is basically if the metalloproteases are more active than the tissue inhibitors of metalloproteases. This can happen when there is secretion of interleukin 4 or 10 in the circulation, and this basically happens when the T helper 2 cells are activated, right? So in this case there could be predisposition to aneurysm, and the fourth thing could be due to loss of smooth muscle cell. The most common cause of aortic aneurysm is atherosclerosis. It is an inflammatory process, as we all know. The other cause also includes hypertension, and as we move ahead, we'll see various other causes. Okay, so number one, we'll see about thoracic aortic aneurysm. So how will a patient present to you if the patient is having a thoracic aortic aneurysm? It is basically dilation, right? Aneurysm is nothing but dilation. Now you imagine this is the root of aorta, and this is the arch of aorta, and we all know this lies in the sternal region. This lies in the upper thorax, right? So if there is any outpouching or dilation, what will happen? This will compress the bone, right? This will basically put pressure on the bone, which can lead to erosion and encroachment. So the patient can present with chest pain. Also, since it is in the thoracic region, there could be compression of any coronary artery, which could lead to myocardial ischemia. So the patient can present with symptoms relating to myocardial ischemia. Also, we know in the upper part of the thorax, the esophagus also comes down, right? So basically there could be dysphagia due to compression of esophagus. Also, there are recurrent laryngeal nerves which when compressed can lead to hoarseness of the voice, and there is also bronchi and the trachea, right? So if there is compression of the bronchi, it can lead to respiratory complications. So these are the symptoms with which a patient can present. Now, thoracic aortic aneurysm is most often associated with cystic medial degeneration, which means it involves the degeneration of the vessel walls, most commonly the tunica media. So now the tunica media can be damaged because of variety of reasons. Two prominent reasons are, one could be due to an atherosclerotic plaque, and the second could be due to any sort of damage or inflammation in the vasa vasorum. Now, you imagine there is this tunica media, right? So the tunica media is divided into two parts, the outer part and the inner part. To the inner part, near the inner part, there is this tunica intima, right? Now, if there is any atherosclerotic plaque over here, now you imagine this is the blood vessel and the blood is flowing over here, right? We know the vessel walls also need nutrition, right? So from the main flowing blood vessel, जिसकी walls हैं ये, so what happens is basically the blood basically the nutrients basically diffuse via the tunica intima and reach the inner side of the tunica media, and this is how the inner side of the tunica media receives its nutrition. Now you imagine if there is an atherosclerotic plaque over here, this diffusion will lower down, right? And the tunica media ka inner side will not be able to receive its nutrition, and hence it will start undergoing degeneration, right? Now, the next thing is there are vessels which supply the vessel wall itself, which are known as vasa vasorum, right? So, the vasa vasorum comes over here. Now, suppose if there is any inflammation or any issue with the vasa vasorum is not able to supply blood vessel. What will happen? The tunica externa and the outer side of the tunica media will get affected, and this will lead to degeneration of the outer side of the tunica media. So what we understood was basically the tunica media has two sides, inner and the outer side. If there is any atherosclerotic plaque near the tunica intima, there could not be any diffusion to the tunica media's inner side. So the inner side will not receive any nutrition and it will undergo degeneration. If there is issue with vasa vasorum, the outer side of the tunica media will have trouble getting nutrition, and thus it can lead to cystic medial degeneration. Okay, you can see over here, this is the normal vessel wall, how it appears. There is elastic fibers and there is extracellular matrix and all, and because of the defect, because of any atherosclerotic plaque or any damage to vasa vasorum, the vessel wall undergoes degeneration. The risk factors for this medial degeneration are hypertension, bicuspid aortic valve, Marfan syndrome, and syphilis. An important thing to note about syphilis is tertiary syphilis basically causes obliterative end arteritis of the vasa vasorum. What does it mean is basically it inflames the vessel wall of the vasa vasorum itself. So basically there is an issue with vasa vasorum, right? So the vasa vasorum will now not be able to supply the blood to the blood vessel that effectively. So this can also lead to medial degeneration, predisposing the person to thoracic aortic aneurysm. In a patient of tertiary syphilis, when we do the biopsy or when we do the histopathological staining, we can see lymphoplasmacytic inflammation in the adventitia. Okay, the clinical manifestation of any sort of these things can be similar, but how will you differentiate syphilis is by the histopathological examination. If there is dilation in the aortic root, okay, where the aorta is basically starting, it can lead to aortic valve regurgitation. It could lead to incompetency of the aortic valve in future. Okay, so this is all about thoracic aortic aneurysm. Now, moving on to abdominal aortic aneurysm. The abdominal aortic aneurysm involves transmural. Basically, all the three layers of the vessel wall are inflamed and there is extracellular matrix degradation. How will a patient present to you? The patient can present to you in the following way. Since the abdominal aorta is weakened, it is very prone to rupture. So there could be rupture into the peritoneal cavity or the retroperitoneal issues, which can lead to a very fatal hemorrhage. There could be obstruction of any branch vessel, which can lead to an ischemic injury. Maybe the iliac blood vessel is getting affected, the renal artery, the mesenteric artery, or the vertebral artery, which can lead to ischemia and the related symptoms. The other thing could be embolism. One thing to note over here is abdominal aortic aneurysm is most commonly associated with a bland, poorly organized mural thrombus. So there could be embolization of this mural thrombus, right? And this could lead to further other clinical manifestation. The other could be because this is aneurysm, abdominal aorta is huge. If it dilates and outpouch, it can compress and put pressure on the structures nearby. So there could be compression of ureter and erosion of vertebrae, and there could be clinical symptoms related to it. Like if there is compression of ureter, there could be oliguria and all, which it can also in future it can lead to hydronephrosis and stuff. So yeah, now the abdominal aortic aneurysm is most often complicated with atherosclerosis, which we saw over here also. Right, so this atherosclerosis basically causes the destruction and thinning of aortic media, which causes the weakening of the vessel wall and causes abdominal aortic aneurysm. The most common location of abdominal aortic aneurysm is between the renal artery and the bifurcation of the abdominal aorta. Okay, it can also be situated near the superior or inferior mesenteric artery. The usual size is greater than 5.5 centimeter in diameter and 25 centimeter in length. About the size, we'll be seeing there is a risk of rupture, associated with this aneurysm. So if the size is less than 4 centimeter in diameter, the risk is almost nil. If it's around 4 to 5, the risk is 1%. If it's 5 to 6, the risk is around 11%. And if it's more than 6 centimeter in diameter, there is a risk of 25% rupture. Okay. Also, the abdominal aortic aneurysm grows at an annual growth rate of 0.2 to 0.3 centimeter. Now, how will a patient present? A patient can present with pulsatile abdominal mass because there is dilation, right? And the patient can also present with acute abdominal or back pain because of the things we saw over here. And there could be resistant hypotension, which the patient can present with. Okay. There are basically three histopathological types which we can see in abdominal aortic aneurysm. Number one is inflammatory abdominal aortic aneurysm. The patient presents with back pain and the patient's blood report shows inflammatory markers which are elevated. If we do a histopathological examination, we can see abundance of lymphocytes and plasma cells along with several macrophages which can even coalesce to form giant cells, and there could be a dense peri-aortic scarring. Okay, because inflammation, it activates the TGF beta pathway and other pathways which can eventually lead to fibrosis and scarring. So this is how inflammatory aortic aneurysm will be there. The next is Ig4 related disease. Ig4 related disease will, there will be a storiform fibrosis in the vessel wall. Okay, it can also cause bilateral hydronephrosis, and it could be, there could be involvement of the retroperitoneal structures as well. It responds well to steroids and anti-B cell therapy because Ig4 related disease is nothing but an autoimmune condition, so we need to suppress the immune system, so we give steroids. It also frequently involves the pancreas and thyroid. The third type could be mycotic aneurysm. Mycotic aneurysm is basically associated to infection. Okay, so if we know that in any sort of infection, there could be a formation of septic embolus, and if this embolus is embolized, there such as in infective endocarditis, there could be inflammation, and it could lead to mycotic aneurysm. There could also be suppose the bacteria, the entire thing, embolus is lodged over here, it can extend to a nearby structure, so this can also lead to mycotic aneurysm. Or there could be circulation of the organisms which directly infect the arterial wall, which can lead to mycotic aneurysm. This is how the abdominal aortic aneurysm is there.